Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammadi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to today's today's session of Fiqh Hour, in which inshallah ta'ala we make all efforts to be able to answer your queries, your questions, peculiarities, anything which may have crossed your mind, which you need sort of an Islamic take on it to understand it better. Strange, 77% already, goodness me. And which we try to give you some insights, inshallah ta'ala. So already we have a question, so we'll kick off with that question before we go to the Markuz Lifta wal Qada. And the question is, how are we to understand the love in the verse, Allah loves the Sabirin? Allah loves those who place their trust in Him. Say, if you love God, follow me, and Allah will love you. This love, obviously, when Allah loves something, then know that love comes with great tests. That's the first thing. So with love comes great tests. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a creature, loves something, then He tests them even more to determine their love back to Him. That how much love do they have for Him. Secondly, it means that obviously Allah's rahmah will descend upon that person. Allah's will protect that person. It doesn't mean that he won't go through difficulties. He will go through difficulties, but rather he will be protected from deviation. He will be protected from any spiritual harm coming to him, but any physical harm might come. And also, obviously, this is a show of, love can be taken literally. Absolutely. Love can be taken literally because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can express love to a creature. It is mentioned in a narration that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a creature, then He calls Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam and says to Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam that I love so and so, so you love him. So when He loves him, then He makes a elan, He makes a declaration in the heavens that Allah loves so and so, so you love so and so. And this reaches all the way to the people of the dunya until He gets qabuliya, acceptance in the dunya. What do you mean by acceptance in the dunya? Meaning that He is highly regarded in the dunya. People respect Him, and not just anybody respects Him, because nowadays we see that anybody can be respected and followed and loved, but really the pious, the God-fearing, those type of people have love for Him. Is there a hadith regarding shaitan urinating on a person when he misses Fajr? If so, please could you explain this? I have heard the phrase, but I do not recall coming across the hadith of there is the urination in the ear. And also we hear, for example, the blowing of knots on the person in order to make sure he sleeps so he doesn't get up for Fajr. How do we understand that? Obviously, with regards to the shaitan, we know the shaitan is not visible to us. So anything the shaitan does is not usually visible. So we don't see, like, for example, a book flying off the shelf and hitting us on the head, and we think, oh, looks like shaitan did that. Usually when shaitan interacts with us, shaitan's interaction is with us through spiritual, through mental. It usually impacts us on that way. We don't, his impact is not visible to us, even though it becomes visible upon us because it upsets us, or it disturbs us, or it makes us react in a certain way. Like anger is from shaitan. So we don't see, shaitan creep up behind us and, shake us and punch us a few times and then we get angry. But obviously he sort of massages our ego, whispers in our ear that, oh, are you going to take that? He just called you a fool and you just stood there. Come on, man up, say something back to him. So obviously you started getting angry, and so anger is from shaitan. So we're told, what are we told to say? We're told to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, or I seek refuge in Allah from the cursed shaitan, from the rejected shaitan. So therefore we know that he has an impact. He can impact us, and his impact can become physical in the sense that we can express anger, we can express sometimes we can be so angered by him that we utter words of divorce, something that we weren't even thinking about, but he becomes so quickly so angry, and we think, wow, how did I become so angry so quickly? It was only like an argument, and I was handling it, and then suddenly I just completely lost my control, and that's Shaitan's doing. So in this way, what it means basically is that Shaitan is stopping us getting up for Fajr. That's in essence what it means. Because physically, obviously, we don't feel any water in our ear, and that obviously makes an assumption that Shaitan drinks water and then he releases or relieves himself in a similar manner. And that's not something we've explored. So really, the way we understand this is that he impacts on us. He tries to stop us from getting up for Fajr by his advancements, by his engagement with us, by his disturbance of us, by suddenly sleep becomes so sweet. It's that famous thing, isn't it? Like you see lots of memes nowadays as well, where you can't go to sleep at 11, you can't go to sleep at 12, you can't go to sleep at 2, you can't go to sleep at 3, and just at Fajr time, you fall asleep, and it doesn't matter if there's an explosion outside your house, you can't get up. So this is Shaitan's doing, that he is trying to stop a person from impacting on that person. Wa alaikum salam. I'm being bullied at school and it's really affecting my mental health. How do I stand up for myself? Do you have any advice, please, sir? Well, the thing is, if you are being bullied at school, the first thing you would do is you would speak to staff, speak to parents. You should not tolerate it. The reason being is, if you do tolerate it, not only will it impact your life now, it will also impact your life in the future. Because the way we are unfortunately affected by things as children, then that really kind of sort of sculptures us. It forms us and our being as we get older. So this is not something, this will continue. If there is not a stop put to it, it will continue. Bullies don't just stop bullying. Unfortunately, the bullies have a problem. So it's the bully's problem, which is the cause. Where's it gone? I was reading it, disappeared. There it is. So it's the bully's problem that they bully. It's not your problem. There's nothing wrong with you. They have a problem. So they're not suddenly just going to have an epiphany. They're certainly not going to have a moment where they think, all right, okay, you know what? I should stop doing this. This is not really a good thing, because unfortunately it's a fitrat, it's a practice, and they will keep doing that until they are advised and counseled out of bullying. So therefore, you need to mention that immediately to parents. You need to mention that immediately to staff members, to teachers at your school, and ask them. And obviously, they should have some form of policy. They should have some form of intervention in which they will put a stop to it. And if it continues, then you keep doing that until it stops. You do not, and you try to find ways that you don't make yourself open to that, meaning that you don't end up being alone, say in the toilets, for example, if that's where they are, or you don't go down a certain route if there's not enough students there. You try to make sure that how you move around school is where it's, it's quite busy. It's difficult for them to kind of single you out. It's difficult for them to pull you to one side. It's difficult for them to take those steps. If they're taking money away from you, then find ways of, not bringing that money to school, or giving that money to a friend and getting that money off that friend later on. So one is obviously put a stop to it immediately. Speak to an adult, speak to the staff members, speak to the class teacher, speak to whoever's responsible for bullying. There will usually be an individual in the school who has the responsibility. Speak to them, make sure that they become aware of it, and likewise tell your parents. It's not something you should suffer in silence. If you need some form of counseling, again, speak to your school so they can provide you that counseling. And in the meantime as well, even post that, it should avoid these people at all costs until this matter has been dealt with. Second question. So it's okay to say Allah loves acts of obedience. It's okay to use the word love. Yeah, absolutely. It's okay to use the word love. I've just used it, sister, and I've used it several times. So yeah, absolutely. Love, like, he will, any act that we perform, when he sees that, he will show, the hub, and he will have the hub for it, because it is an act of obedience. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is why when we say that, what is the point in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let me just send this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sending people to Jahannam, Allah Allah SWT does not like sending people to Jahannam. Allah SWT gives people a choice. He gives people choices to make, that where is it you wish to go? And if they say, oh, I want to go Jannah, then he says, okay, then perform these deeds. Avoid Jahannam, don't perform these deeds. So it's clear that we make those choices. Put that responsibility or that blame on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then. Alaykum salam. What is the aura of a Muslim woman in front of non-Muslim women? Okay, so the aura of a Muslim woman in front of non-Muslim women. Let me just absolutely confirm that. I've got it in my head, but I don't want to say something. Non-Muslim woman aura. Not non-Muslim woman aura. Muslim woman aura in front of non-Muslim women. There's some debate. Some obviously will say it's fine to that which is in front of a mahram man. But let me just get you the specifics, inshallah, and I will share that with you tomorrow, inshallah. You're a regular attendee anyway, so hopefully you'll hear that. We hear stories and hadith of people in Jannah and Jahannam. Does this mean judgment has taken place for some people and they are in paradise or hell now? Interesting question, Bilal. And if you have been attending these sessions, you will note that I've spoke about time and how time is a created phenomenon. And therefore, because time is a created phenomenon, then there is, outside of this world, there is no time. Okay? There is no time. Meaning that in the bigger scheme of things, there are already people in Jannah, there are already people in Jahannam, because there's no such thing as time. Time is created for us to exist in this world. So that, I'm younger than my father, I'm older than my son. But in Jannah, everybody's the same age. Why? Because there's no need for somebody to be older or to somebody to be younger, because there's no passage of time and there's no chronological sequence of events. So in the same way, once we pass, we go into barzakh. There is no measure of time. Okay, so we don't get older in barzakh. Okay, we don't start becoming, because most of us are going to die when we're old, so we don't get any older. We stay the same age and we don't die, because there's no such thing as time. There's no day, there's no night, there's no necessarily need to eat, there's no necessarily need to sleep, because all these things are created for this world. In barzakh, and this is even before Jannah and Jahannam, all these things will happen. Then obviously the various stages we go through, the crossing of the bridge, the standing in front of the scales, all these, again, time is mentioned. And when the time is mentioned, it makes reference to the length of something, that it's like 50,000 years. And when it means by 50,000 years, it is referring to the duration of the days. But how do you measure 50,000 years? Is how are you going to measure 50,000 years? That's like a long time. So is it really a measure of time, or is it just a case of saying it's a long time? Okay, it's a long time. Because there's no day and night, because there's no sleeping, because there's no eating, because there's no marriages, there's no children being born, there's no passage of time. The only way we feel time is because of life events which happen. And because life events happen, sometimes you feel like you're a young man until you go past a mirror and then you realize, oh, I'm not a young man. So you only, or you start feeling old, and otherwise you don't sense time, you don't sense the passing of time. It's life events which gives you the sense of passing of time. So what I would do is therefore, even it mentions in a hadith when the Prophet ﷺ was taken on Mi'raj and he saw people being punished in the barzakh, and he also then went to Jannah and he heard the sound of Bilal radiallahu anhu's footsteps in front of him. And when he came back to the earth and he asked Bilal radiallahu anhu that, oh, I heard your footsteps. What do you think is the cause of the fact that you are in Jannah? So he goes, I am not sure. What is the reason why I end in Jannah? Maybe it's because every time I make wudu, I pray 2 rakats tahiyyatul wudu. It could be that. And the Prophet ﷺ says, yes, it could be that. So how can Bilal radiallahu anhu be in Jannah when he's on the earth? So this is where people can't understand that. So time, remember, only exists in this world. Okay. So right now I'm X number of years. In 20 years, 5 years time, I might be dead. In 40 years time, I've been dead for 15 years. So that's the passing of time. Whereas once I die, then that's it. There is no such thing as time. And because there's no such thing as time, then yes, we are already arguably in Jannah, and we are already arguably in Jahannam, because of the fact that there is no time. And it's confusing, and that's why, because it's confusing, we tend not to have these conversations too much in public, because people will be sort of thinking, oh, I don't get that, it doesn't make sense. Does that mean we don't exist? And people start to kind of go a little bit too far. So I'll leave it at that for now, inshallah. Keeping family pictures in the house allowed, even in the room where we pray? No, one should avoid keeping pictures in the house. Reason being is it is a tasveer. It is a picture. There's no two ways about it. It may not be made by hand, but it is an image. And obviously we know what we are told about images. So, if somebody has them on their phone as electronic, that's one thing. But when they print them out and physically put them up on walls, then that's another thing altogether. So one should refrain from doing that. For the very reason that you mentioned there, from the fact that we pray there, they will look very idealistic, in the sense that they look like idols, they look like things which people worship. Secondly, obviously we know that angels and don't enter into rooms in which we have images up on walls. So therefore, again, we should avoid that. Because when we go to, during the day, whilst we're awake, we might pray, we might do some azkar, we might say something. So we're protecting ourselves against shaitan. But when we go to sleep, then we're not protecting ourselves from shaitan. Now, unless we've prayed the du'as before we went to sleep, the chances are, or prayed ayatul kursi before we went to sleep, then we are open to attack from shaitan. We are open to attack from shaitan. And this is why we need our guard, our protection of the angels that are standing guard over us to protect us from the shayateen. But if there are images up or things of that nature, then they don't enter. The shayateen enter, because they don't care. There's no rules for them with regards to this. But the angels don't come in. They stop at the door, and that obviously becomes a problem for us. Where do we go oh, it's just jumped. Is listening to music allowed while exercising? There's no real reason to permit the listening to music. Music is considered as something which can sow the seeds of hypocrisy in a person's heart, because what happens is music gives us that elation, it gives us that buzz, it gives us that kind of excitement, and this is it's a false dawn. It's a bit like drugs. It's a bit like those sorts of things which gives us a little hit and gets us excited, and we think, oh yes, this is great, whatever. But then it leaves us sad, it leaves us depressed, it leaves us in a worse state. And that's the effect of these sorts of things, is they're not there to give us true contentment of the heart. And the true contentment of the heart comes only from the worship of Allah, and that's where only the true contentment is. So it's not a reason to permit it whilst exercising. When you're exercising, you just kind of get on with it, and there's no real need to have sort of music on. So it's not literally urinating. Well, as just explained to you, when we understand the word urinating, then we understand the word urinating of the passing of water. That's our understanding of urinating. So would you need to ask me that question? How many times have you got up in the morning and you found yourself wet with urine on your face? So if that has happened, then yes, it seems that it is literally. In all my years that I've been alive, I've never got up with a wetness on my face or in my ears or anywhere, and which smells like urine, or over the pillow, or over my duvet or anything like that. So that tells me, just by my experience, that it clearly cannot be a physical act, because if it was a physical act, there'd be lots of people complaining, getting up in the morning and finding urine all over their face and finding urine all over the pillow. So we have to apply a bit of akal as well. Sometimes we become a little bit detached. Our akal becomes a little bit detached when we read things. So when something cannot be understood in the zahir, in the apparent meaning of the word, then we take it to mean that this is meaning metaphorically. Sometimes you get up. Have you ever noticed where? Okay. We got like in 3D, man. So have you ever sometimes got up in the morning and your ears feel really heavy? Okay, they feel really heavy and you can't really hear the sound around you. I have one problem in this ear, I think it is, where I think I've got slightly perforated eardrum. So when I lie on it, sometimes what happens is because of the pressure, when I sort of get up, I can't hear out this ear. So that, that could be an explanation where you get heavy ears and you can't hear properly. And, sometimes you have to kind of like pop your ears a bit like when you're on a plane and you have to do that. So that could be an understanding because, we experience things like that. What is, in essence, what he's talking about is shaitan stops you from getting up for Fajr. That's really what he's saying. One of the other reasons what stops us getting up for Fajr is because if you have a nice cozy bed, then you're not going to get up for Fajr. Have you noticed that when you're on a plane that you sleep very little, unless you're obviously flying first class or something or business class? Otherwise, when you're on a plane, you only sleep like, what you really need. If you're traveling, you'll notice you sleep so little. Why? Because your body will sleep what it needs. Anything beyond what it needs is no longer comfortable. How long can you sleep like this? So you might sleep like an hour for like that, and then that's it, you're up. Because your body's got enough in it now to carry on. Or if you're you're waiting at an airport, you might sort of sleep like that for another hour, and then you're up, or 2 hours. So that shows your body can get up quite quickly after just an hour, 2 hours of sleep. But we've made obviously our beds really comfortable. We've got best pillows that you can get, best mattresses that you can get, the best duvet so that we're nice and warm. And when we fall asleep, we're going to fall asleep like for 10 hours now. Nothing's going to get us up. Secondly, it doesn't help, obviously, of going to sleep late. In the winter, 6 months, 7 months, especially here in the UK, there's no need to go to sleep late. Isha is already done by 7:30. So arguably 9, 10 o'clock, a person can go to sleep. And then they start their day when they get up for Fajr. There's no need to be, actually, you wait until the fiqh hour finishes. Nearly forgot. Then, obviously, after that, you can go to sleep. So, there's no need. In summer months, I appreciate it's a little bit more challenging because in the summer months, the Isha is so late. And because it's so late, it can be problematic. But then normally what we advise is, an afternoon siesta, an afternoon qaylula is just to, recharge the batteries a little bit because you're getting up at, 3, 4 in the morning to pray your Fajr. You're going to sleep maybe 11 o'clock to pray your Isha. So, yeah, it's now a little bit more challenging, but it can be done. What is the bare minimum? What is the bare minimum amount required to keep relationship with one's brother and sisters? Unfortunately, none of us get along. Yeah, the bare minimum is at least the blood tie is maintained. So putting it the other way around is how are blood ties broken? Well, blood ties are broken when you have a moment of happiness in your house or you have a moment of sadness in your house and relatives don't acknowledge that. That's a cause of breaking blood ties. So really it's anything which is going to bring about a breaking of a tie, then you need to make sure that you do that. So whenever there's some good news at your brother's or sister's house, then you're there to acknowledge that good news and celebrate with them, so to speak, or at least acknowledge it and congratulate them. And if there's unfortunate news, sad news, something bad has happened, whatever, then again, you're there. Other than that, that's really pretty much, what we do when it comes to family, isn't it? We don't really do much else apart from if we really, really get on, then we might get together every week or something like that, get some food together. Maybe at one day where we've got a dawat at one brother's house, another day we've got dawat at another sister's house, whatever. That's obviously if everybody gets on swimmingly well. Unfortunately, nowadays, most people don't get on swimmingly well like that. So there is the thing that basically, as long as the tie is maintained, you don't kind of hate each other or spite each other. And the fact that when you're in one room together, at least you can have a conversation for more than, 5-10 minutes without thinking, okay, I've asked about the weather. I've asked about her kids. I've asked about her husband. What else do I talk about now? So then obviously that shows that there is a bit of a thing there. Obviously you've got to try to explore what the reason is for nobody getting along. So you need to kind of explore that. What's the cause of that? And at least there should be some effort made to repair that. It might be after years of trying, you come to the conclusion that this is beyond repair. At that point, yes, you may be able to, but that, I'm not talking like 6 months of effort and think, this is not worth it. I'm talking years, 10, 15 years of effort of trying to keep this tie, maintain it. And then, in the sense of trying to find the underlying issues, resolving the underlying issues, and then moving forward, trying to find the underlying issues, resolving the underlying issues, and moving forward. And that's right. Until you get to a point where, it's like the famous saying that it takes two hands to clap. And if there's only one hand that's doing everything and very little coming from the other hand, then it gets to a point where it becomes tiresome. And then as long as you're maintaining the blood tie, that suffices. If unfortunately, every time you get the family together at your house, but nobody else is getting the family together. So you do that every time, nobody else is doing that. So after a while, you sort of think, well, you know what? It just seems to be me all the time doing it. Nobody else seems to care. So what I'll do is, as long as I'm maintaining my tie with people, then that should suffice. Assalamu alaikum. In Arabic class, the textbook Baina Yadayk has dialogues between two people which talk about how one did tawaf, umrah, what one did at Miqat, Wukuf, Arafat, being tomorrow. Okay, maybe the rest of the question comes up later on. Oh, it does, yeah. Etc. There are also paragraphs saying how a person, for example, Ahmad, will travel to Mecca, Medina, and pray in the Haramain. Not sure if they are based on real conversation scenarios. Is it permissible to read these dialogues and paragraphs in class and outside of class? Why would they not be permissible? I'm not sure I understand that. Why would these be impermissible to read in class or out of class for that matter? Which is a conversation between two people. So if you could just elaborate on that. Yesterday I asked a question about praying Asr Salah behind the Imam during Maliki times, the ruling of this, that it will be counted as Sunnah if it was prayed in Makkah and Medina. Well, Makkah and Medina, sister, is an unusual scenario. So we cannot apply the rules associated with unusual scenarios to our everyday life. Makkah, Medina, you can't control which masjid you pray in. When you are in Makkah, you pray in the Haram. And when you pray in Medina, you pray in the Haram. So there's no choice. You cannot say, shall I go somewhere else? So that, whereas I can go pray in a Maliki masjid, or I can go pray in a Hanafi masjid. There is no choice. So it would be valid there. This is very similar to the fact that, as a bloke, you might have women praying next to you, not literally next to you, but, two, three people along. And we know that women cannot share the same row as men. So again, it's unusual. Thirdly, you would normally wait for the person behind you to finish their prayer before you would cut across. In the Mataf and in the Masjid al-Haram, generally, it's near impossible to leave the masjid without crossing somebody's path. You just have to. So it's unfortunate, but how else would you get? Otherwise, you're going to just live in the Mataf. You might as well just camp there. So there are certain rules which have to be slightly suspended in the Masjid al-Haram, yani in Mecca, because of the dynamics of that masjid. One of those, obviously, is the fact that there is the Salah time is different. That has to be accepted. Some people have gone as far to say that, you should still pray that with the Imam and then pray your own separately to be on the safe side. But I would say it is perfectly fine that if a person prayed behind the Imam in the Haram, Masjid al-Haram or Masjid Nabwi, that it would be absolutely fine and their farz of that time will be done, inshallah. Do I need to make up for the Asr prayers I prayed in Makkah? Is it the same rule for Isha prayer? No, I've given that answer, so that what I said earlier will cover that. If one forgot the first tashahhud, do they make it up in the third rakah before sajda sahwi at the end? So they can do, okay, because then what they've done is they've just delayed it rather than omitted it completely. So if they do the tashahud in the, so they've sat down in the second rakah and they've not done it in the second rakah, they've stood up and then they've realized afterwards, then yes, they can do. It's not a, it's a sound practice to do, because in that case, it's only a delay rather than a complete omission. I sometimes work in non-Muslim houses. If they offer me tea, am I allowed to drink this? Yes, absolutely fine. If somebody offers you tea, then you can absolutely sit and drink that cup of tea. There's no problem whatsoever with. Oh, okay, the feeling. There's absolutely no problem whatsoever with drinking the tea. There are other Muslims who pretend to be my friends, and I always feel embarrassed talking to a teacher or my parents. Does not standing up for yourself mean others don't respect you? Well, I wouldn't necessarily. When you're saying they're standing up for yourself, then standing up for yourself means being violent, because apart from saying to them, you're going to say, please go away, they're gonna not listen to you. So the only way you're going to actually do is to stand, is to hit back. Problem you're going to have there is, first of all, I can't condone that. Secondly, if there's 2, 3 of them, 4 of them, then your chances are you're outnumbered. So that's going to end pretty, pretty bad way for yourself. So it doesn't really solve it. You have to put your, on the one hand, you talk about affecting your mental health, and then the other hand, you're talking about being embarrassed to talk to your teacher or your parent, and then you're also saying that you don't have any friends. So you can't have one and not the other. The only way you solve it is by dealing with it. You start, bullies naturally are violent, aggressive people. So you hit back, then they'll just find another opportunity to hit you back. So then you hit back, and this just carries on and on and on. Doesn't solve it. Yeah, it might give you a sensation of, yeah, I got him back, and it might feel good inside, but it's only a short-term gain, because in the long term, they're not going to just accept that. If they've bullied somebody for so long and then suddenly he punches them, they're not going to accept that. And like I said, if there's 3, 4, it could get very dangerous, where it could get out of control. And then, so really you have to put your embarrassment to one side. Your parents have a right to know. The teacher has a right to know. And similarly, how can you tell if somebody is pretending to be your friend or not your friend? So, there's nobody that's your friend in the whole school. Then that shows there's some other issues as well that you need to look at. That if you're in a school, you've got to be able to socialize, you've got to be able to make friends, you've got to be able to trust people. So these are a lot of issues that you're kind of giving at me. And obviously this is a live feed, so there's very little sort of counseling or such I can give you in this way or shape or form. And that's the reason why I'm suggesting to you that you get some form of intervention, adult intervention, expertise intervention, so that they can assist you moving along your journey through childhood into adulthood. You mentioned that the love is not an emotion in this ayah. That's correct. Yes, I did mention that. The aura of women in front of Mahram men is the same as in front of Muslim women. Is that right? Does it mean fathers can see the upper part of the daughter's body? Yes, that's quite correct. As including the back as well. It's just sort of more the stomach and the thighs. But that doesn't mean that obviously women walk around in front of their fathers in that way. And this is again about what's permissible and what is appropriate. I think we had a question a few days back where we were explaining permissibility of something, but not necessarily meaning that that's something we should do. I can't remember what it was. Maybe some of you can remember and put it on there. The other one was obviously that, marriage, is permissible to marry 4 wives. That doesn't mean that it's recommended to marry 4 wives or that we should all rush out and marry 4 wives. And there's a few others. I can't remember what example I gave. Anyway, like I said, if you remember, please do put it on here. So yeah, but that's not what a woman would do. It would be deemed inappropriate to do that. The reason why this exists, okay, is because practically speaking, when a woman is around the house, okay, then it can be difficult for her to keep covered all the time. So, especially if she's got a young child that she's feeding as well. So she's moving around the house, each woman works differently around the house. Some women work with, rolling their sleeves up. Some women work, with having, a lower cut top or something, so it makes it easier to move around without having to have something right up to the neck, or have a headscarf on as well. So it's mainly for practical reasons. Otherwise it wouldn't. And also because the haya is there. But like I said, now, society has changed tremendously. And even in front of brothers, sisters need to be careful. Not necessarily apply the mahram rule, but to just think that at the end of the day, the world is a strange place, where a man would look at his mother in a certain way, a man would look at his sister in a certain way. That's now being challenged by, the kind of the material, unfortunately, that young people are being exposed to all the time, constantly. And the one thing that's always being asked of them is, what is their sexual identity? Nothing else seems to be that important. That's all that's asked, and that's all that's put in their heads, and constantly barrage of material on social media, on the internet generally, in films, in songs. It's just boom, boom, continuously being, smashed into children's heads. And it's very difficult, like when we were growing up, on TV, there was only like 2 channels, and they were only till about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then there was no TV at night, and you never put it on because you're too busy playing outside. So, and that was a childhood that I had. But now, if you look at the childhood that children are having now, most of them have some form of device by the age of 6, 7, 8 years old. And depending on the parenting, unfortunately, if it's poor parenting, which it generally is, then they've got access to everything by the time they're 9, 10. So that's why you're getting all these strange questions where even in primary school, children are sort of questioning their gender, questioning their identity and things like that. So yeah, even though these auras exist, it's not something just because it's permissible, it's something that we should do. It's a case of, yes, legally speaking, if that happened, it's not a problem. But obviously, one takes precautions as and when deemed appropriate, based upon the type of man the father is, the type of man the brother is, the type of man the son is. So I hope that makes sense. Would we ever hear that a child would beat his own parents in order to rob them? And we see that now. Who would have thought something like that would happen? And we see that now. Who would have thought that, God forbid that, people would be sort of raping 80-year-old, 90-year-old women. We see that. So the level of perversion now, unfortunately, is on another level. So, it's a case of being absolutely careful, and knowing your own boundaries, and knowing what is appropriate, knowing your environment, knowing the people that are there, and and applying that. Just because something is legal doesn't necessitate that one should take the full legality. Where's it gone? Assalamu alaikum. Lovely seeing you here as always. Alhamdulillah. Hoping you're well. Barakallah fiqh. Very well, Iman. These sessions continue to over Ramadan. Inshallah, sister asked that question last week or the week before, or maybe no, the week before, a few days ago rather. And the aim is, inshallah, it just depends, obviously. I would prefer, because my Ramadans are very busy, alhamdulillah. I'm aiming, inshallah, if Allah gives tawfiq, to do the last 10 days again in itikaf. So I'm away, usually go down to London. So that's the plan. And usually my Ramadan schedule gets booked up pretty quickly, so I tend to be doing programs in masjids. So I've got to somehow manage it. And also, obviously, the fast will be breaking about 6, half 6, 7 o'clock, something like that. So we're going to maybe need another time. So leave it with me, inshallah. I think if we generate enough interest, and if there are people ready to be, to partake in those, then let's see, inshallah. So far we've got through 19 days, alhamdulillah, non-stop. That's fantastic. Hopefully, inshallah, we will carry that on at least till Ramadan. In the masjid, while I was praying sunnah prayers, one of the women moved me to swap places. She wasn't in the prayer, but I was. Is my prayer valid? Should I resist myself next time from moving? The question was coming: why did she move you? What was the reason she moved you? One can be moved in prayer if there's a reason to be moved in prayer. Remember, this was an involuntary action. This wasn't a voluntary action. You didn't choose to move. You were moved. Okay, so what to do is, if you can just get back to me with regards to that, how did this movement happen? But in your case, obviously, the salah will still be. In your case, as long as your chest did not move from the direction of Qibla, meaning you didn't turn, but you just kind of move to one side or move to the other side, then the salah will still be valid. If you turned away from the Qibla, then your salah would be invalid, and obviously you'd have to repeat that salah. But yeah, I'd be interested to know why she moved you. Oh, there it is. Because they do it as so earth can witness on our behalf, so choosing to pray. Yeah, mashallah, that's very good. But she can't do that when someone stood there. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Silly woman that she was. It's correct. That what you do is when you pray your fard, then you can go pray your sunnah somewhere else. So correctly said that at least you can say, I have prayed everywhere in this masjid. That's not when someone's there. You can't say, oops, oh, I prayed in that spot. Budge off, you can't do that. So you have to be a little careful with regards to that they can't just push you and shove you off. If the Quran is for all of mankind and a guide for this ummah, why is it only suggested that scholars interpret its text to avoid misunderstanding? And if the average Muslim can misinterpret the Quran? If the Quran is for all of mankind and a guide for this ummah, why is it only suggested that scholars interpret its text to avoid misunderstanding? Okay, I get that. Hold on, it carries on. But what hope is there for the non-believers looking at the Quran for guidance? Will they not also misinterpret? So the Quran, rightly said, Suhaib, is a book of guidance, 100%. And it is for all of mankind, not just, as you correctly say, not just the ummah, but also when I say ummah, I'm referring to the Muslims, but also the non-Muslims. But the Quran can also be misinterpreted and can also misguide. Okay? The Quran can be misinterpreted and also misguide. When it is misinterpreted, it will misguide. But you will only get guidance from the Quran. You cannot get guidance from anywhere else. So to understand about what life is about can only come from the Quran. Only issue is the Quran can be misinterpreted. If the Quran could be understood without the need for a human, then there would have been no need to send the Prophet ﷺ. The Quran would have come down from the heavens as a book. It would have landed in Medina. We would have seen it, and everybody would have got given access to it. Instructions would have been to duplicate it and share it with the world, and that's it. And you would get every man and his next door neighbor coming up with their own versions of what it means. Oh, I think this means this. Oh, I think that means that. Oh, I think this means this. And you would have all different interpretations, all different understandings. So it came down, but you notice it was revealed over 22 years and 10 months. Reason why it was revealed over 22 years and 10 months is because also the condition of the Muslims was changing. So because the condition, otherwise, why wasn't the Quran revealed all in one go? The Quran wasn't revealed all in one go because the context was changing. As I mentioned in previous lectures, previous discussions, is we find the Muslims as a embattled minority, targeted minority, an abused minority, a persecuted minority in one case. And then we see in the other case, near the end of Revelation, when Revelation stopped and the Prophet ﷺ passed away, to being a powerful group of people, to being the most powerful people in the Arabian Peninsula, to now even be the most powerful people in the Middle East, even being the most powerful people. Yeah, Middle East, I think, would suffice. That they destroyed the two superpowers of the Middle East, the Persians and the Eastern Roman Empire. So how can a book, if the book had been revealed in totality, all in one go, how could he address all these different issues? Because people in Mecca would be thinking, how are we going to collect zakat of people when we're all poor? Okay, how are we gonna go for jihad when there's only 5 of us? So it had to be revealed over a period of time, and it had to be revealed through a human. So the Prophet ﷺ would act out the Quran. Yeah, Aisha says he's like the Quran walking. He would act out the Quran so that the people would see, this is what this means. So for example, it mentions in the Quran that carry on eating until you can see the difference between a white thread and a black thread. So because the Prophet ﷺ did not mention what this meant, a companion took 2 threads, a white thread, like a literal, which Sister Maryam is finding difficult to understand. So he literally took 2 pieces of thread, put them on his pillow, and went to sleep. And every time he woke up, he kept looking at the thread. And obviously at night, a black thread and a white thread look the same because there's no light. And he kept doing that until he could differentiate between the two. When he explained this to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ laughed. He says, no, you must have a huge pillow, because this is referring to the darkness on the horizon and the light which appears on the horizon, not about 2 pieces of thread on your pillow. Now, if the Prophet ﷺ was not there to explain that, we would have been putting threads on our pillows up until this time and doing that. Another example I'll give you. Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab and a Sahabi were on a safar, and when they were on safar, they both coincidentally had a wet dream. So when they woke up, they realized that they had no water. So Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to pray and let's travel. The other Sahabi, whose name has now slipped my mind, says, no, I'm going to do tayammum. So Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab said, tayammum is for wudu, not for ghusl. So the Sahabi says, well, if we do this for tayammum for wudu, then what I will do is I will roll in the sand. So he rolled in the sand. So Sayyidina Umar did not do anything because he said tayammum is for when you don't have water for wudu. The other Sahabi, he says, because you wipe on your hands and your face for tayammum in replace of wudu, and you do ghusl full body, I will roll in the sand and cover my whole body in sand in order to do tayammum. When they returned and explained this to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ explained to the Sahabi that all you had to do was tap your hands on the ground and your arms, tap your hands on your face, and that would have sufficed even for ghusl. Now again, if the Prophet ﷺ was not there, what would we do in the absence of water when we are in the state of janaba? Because we've got the Quranic verse which tells us to perform. So therefore, these are just 2 examples I've given you. There are numerous examples which, if we just followed the Quran and try to understand the Quran without the intervention of the Prophet ﷺ, we would be misguided. We would become deviated because we don't understand what the Quran is. First of all, here now in the UK, okay, most of us don't understand Arabic. And those of us who do understand Arabic don't understand classical Arabic. And those of us who do understand classical Arabic don't understand linguistics. And those of us who understand linguistics don't understand the rules of nuzul, yani the asbab nuzul. Why were these verses revealed? And if we understand the asbab nuzul, we don't understand usul al-fiqh. We don't understand. There's so many things we don't understand. So how is it going to be possible to get that? So it will guide all people, but we always need the intervention of individuals. But there are still verses in the Quran, Sahih, which are general, which are like stories of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, which talk about, stories of Musa alayhi salam, the qissa. the stories which speak about yani what happened to Anbiya, what happened to people who were who were troublesome, what happened to people who were disobedient. Those are guidance. The warnings Allah gives us, the mathalan, yani the similitudes He gives us, that look at the camel, look at the two seas, all these examples He gives us that anyone can look at. But when it comes to the more technical ones, now we have to be a little bit careful as to what we look at. I hope you can continue the sessions. Always learn so much here. Alhamdulillah, barakallah fiqh. I hope, Iman, you're sharing it with all my fellow students, all those students that we've taught over the years at the school and the madrasa. You better be, because they do it as so earth can. Oh yeah, sorry, I've read that. I'm sorry, respected Mufti, can you please explain love not being an emotion and Allah loving those who are sabirin, taking love as mercy is correct? Can you please explain love not being an emotion? In your case, as long as your chest. So love can be used in so many different ways. For you to think that love can only be used in one way is incorrect. Okay, is incorrect. So for example, even the word love, okay, even the word love, how does a man love his wife, and how does a man love his mother, and how does a man love his daughter? Now we've used the same word love, same word. Now let's just look at it from a linguistic perspective. Yeah, so how does a man love his wife? How does a man love his brother? How does a man love his daughter? How does a man love his mother? Are these loves the same? Absolutely not. Is the love the man shows towards his wife this halal to show towards his mother? No. Okay, so now you show, what about the love the man shows towards the Prophet ﷺ? Is that the same as the love a man shows to his son, or the love a man shows? So these, even though it's the same love, it has so many different meanings. Okay, and even when we use in the phrase, oh, I love to do that, what do we mean by that? I mean, I enjoy doing that. So don't get caught up in linguistics. I don't know if you've studied linguistics or language, but language is a complicated thing. It's not as simple as you want to make it that, oh, I've seen that 4-letter word there, I've seen that 4-letter word there, therefore that 4-letter word there must mean the same as that 4-letter word there. That's a very simplistic way to understand it. And that's why, which further emphasizes my point, which is what Suhaib is raising there, is why we have ulama. Okay, why we have ulama. Is there a difference in the Hanafi madhab as to whether a mahram can see the woman's back? No, but like I said, let's wait on that. I will answer tomorrow, inshallah, with regards to the aura of a woman. I did mention that earlier, sister. I don't know if you heard it. Is it permissible to write the dua for entering the toilet and stick it outside of the toilet wall? Yeah, one can do so, especially if it's to teach children or if it's to serve as a reminder. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But the key thing is that we should be memorizing these things. We never saw these sorts of things tied around the Prophet ﷺ or the Sahaba or the Khulafa or anybody who came after. It was always there to memorize. We've become very letter orientated. We want everything written. So what we saw is the Prophet ﷺ used to pray the dua over Hassan and Hussein when they fell asleep. We give ta'weezes to our children. So we've become very illiterate and we just a bit careless and a bit sort of lazy, whatever. Of course, the children around the time of the Prophet would probably forget the dua, but they would remind them. So let's use the sunnah. The sunnah is there for that reason. Let's not start inventing things that didn't exist before. But maybe at the early stages, when you're kind of educating your child and you're trying to sort of put them through the motions and you're trying to get them used to it, maybe there. But as I said, we need to kind of move away from that and we need to educate. We are a literate people. Our forefathers might have come from villages. Alhamdulillah, we are educated. Most of us are educated up to the age of 16, which means if you've been in school since the age of 5, that's 11 years of education. We can all write, we can all read, most of us. So really, we're literate. So if we're literate, then we need to spend that little bit of time just having a chat with somebody earlier about our illiteracy when it comes to religion. We are illiterate when it comes to our religion, because as soon as our maktab stops, we quit. That's a problem that we have, not any other way. Okay. I'm really sorry that I've not picked up questions on Thingamajig on Facebook, because it's been pretty quick. Ajib, isn't it? Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's busy. I don't understand. I don't know how it works. You know, yesterday was I think yesterday was busy. What day was it? The day before? Tuesday might have been a little bit quiet. Wednesday was busy-ish. Today it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's the days. If a person about a certain belief, which is ikhtilafi, believes that he believes. Okay. If a person about a certain belief, which is ikhtilafi, believes that he believes what is right and doesn't adopt both of those aqidah, what's going to be with him on the day of judgment? I have enough foggies because I don't even understand the question. So inshallah, that's good, because that was quick, wasn't it? In books, this is written that Sayyidina Umar used to have mustaches, and he used to hold it, so he can also have big mustache taking. I have not heard of that. Sayyidina Umar would have followed the son of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ would clip his mustache, and he would make sure, and he would instruct his companions not for it to hang over the top lip. He did not shave the mustache. He would clip the mustache, and it's neat, and it would not hang over the top lip. The Persians used to grow the mustache, and the Prophet ﷺ was against that. They used to shave their face, the men anyway. They should shave their face, and they would grow their mustache, and you see that now as well, in some parts of Pakistan, in Iran, and these parts where the men will shave their faces but grow their mustache. The Prophet was against that. He would say, grow your beards, but trim your mustaches back. So it's incorrect. Don't read anything and go by anything that you read. So hey, we've had that conversation before, man. Why do most Christians think that Muslims are terrorists? Subhanallah. Misinformation, most likely. I know it's nearly 8 o'clock, so this needs like a full hour, but I'll give you a shortened version. And that is because it's the media that's portrayed Muslims like that. Let me just give you 2 examples. If you look at World War I, that was a Christian war. And if you look at World War II, that was a Christian war. What I mean by that is there were Christian countries that initiated them. More people died in World War I and in World War II than in any other time. If you look at what the Americans did by dropping nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, then and these were where people live, and this was after the Japanese had surrendered, then you cannot get a bigger state of terrorism than that. The reason why, unfortunately, some people link Muslims as terrorists is because when a country does it, it's not considered as a terrorist. And when people do it, it's considered as terrorism. And what you find is, generally speaking, Muslims are in weak positions all across the globe. And Christians predominantly are in strong positions. So when the state, which it means the strong position, does it, it's okay because the government can do that if it kills people. But if people rise up against that, then it's seen as terrorism because, they should be doing that. They should just die. So that's a very shortened version, knowing that we've got some time. But please do join again, Nathan, tomorrow, inshallah, and we can deal with this question in more detail. 7 p.m. Till 8 p.m. Sheikh, you should prioritize Pakistani people question first, as they have to wake up for Fajr. Subhanallah. Good point. Excellent. Sheikh, I can provide evidence. I look forward to it, inshallah. Back to this. So now, does that not mean non-believers looking into Islam can also misinterpret and misunderstand? Absolutely. Absolutely. For example, a Christian, last couple of points I'll make and then we'll finish. A Christian was having, a Christian was having a debate with a Muslim, and the Christian said that you people argue against the Trinity of God, that God can be in 3 forms, 1 in 3, 3 in 1, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Yet I find your book, the Quran, replete with examples of the Trinity. So the Muslim gets a little bit confused. What? Really? He goes, yeah. Verse after verse, I find that you people confirm the Trinity. So the Muslim's intrigued, he's curious. Okay, where are you seeing this, brother? So he says, look, Allah, Ar-Rahman, and Ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Time and time again, 114 times in your book, you affirm the Trinity. Now, who's going to educate this chap to say, no, man, it does not mean that? The last two are the attributes of Allah. They are his attributes, that he is Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. That's what it means. But no, he said, no, that's your interpretation. My interpretation is that there is Allah, there is, so that's the Father. Then you got Rahman, who is the Holy Spirit, and then you got Rahim, which is the Son. There you go. So it can be a cause of, by misinterpreting, they can misunderstand the Quran. That's why when many people ask me, oh, shall I give a copy of the Quran to this non-Muslim friend of mine? I said, that's probably not the best thing to kitab to give straight away. First, you need to start exploring things from challenging his mindset first, challenging his worldview. Once you challenge his worldview, once you challenge his mindset, then you can start to build another mindset, build another worldview. So you have to challenge his worldview first, like, where did we come from? Where are we going? You know, who created us? Things like that. Those are the topical questions that you need to bring first. Once you bring those first, hold on, let me just mute this a little bit. Once you bring those first, then you build the person's curiosity, you damage this, you destroy this misunderstanding that is built, and then you move forward with that, inshallah. May Allah reward you immensely. Ameen. You are a real gem for you. Oh my barakallah fiqh. Allah bless you with your kind words. Ameen. Yes, a long life and one of good deeds as well. Really appreciate that. On that positive note, because we can't get more positive note than that. Alhamdulillah, with those du'as. We bid you well. Have a good evening, inshallah, or good day, or good morning, wherever you are on the planet. And it's going to be same time, same place tomorrow, inshallah, 7 p.m. with more. I'll get back to you with a more detailed answer on the mahram, on the aura issue. And I know there's still a couple of questions from the Darul Iftar that I didn't get a chance to answer. A busy day today, alhamdulillah. May Allah accept. May Allah accept all of you striving to know your deen better in order to practice it better. And as I always say before I finish off, do share the videos with others, please. And also invite others to join the various social media platforms that they prefer. We have TikTok, we have Facebook, we have YouTube, and we have Twitter. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.